Hello and good morning out there, and welcome into the Worst Fantasy Show.
This this is the worst.
Good morning and welcome in. My name is Jack Lucenay. I am the host with the most bedhead right now, coming at you Sunday morning from my son-in-law's room. But yeah, here we are. We are here to answer some fantasy football start-sit questions early this morning, like we always do. We're not going to be here too long, probably a shorter show today. I'm thinking like a half hour and then I'll get on out of here. But yeah, let's just kick it off with some Sunday questions.
Riddle me this, Batman.
So we have a spicy start sit question here in the chat. Again, this is coming from fantasyfootballadvice.network. If you're not a member, I highly recommend you guys can go sign up on the site, ask a lot of start sit questions there. But you can also get in on the group chats and ask questions there. There's a lot of stuff going on. So we'll start with before actually we get to the spicy start sit question, let's start with a dynasty question. We've got a question here. What are the chances J.K. Dobbins is fantasy relevant after this year? I have him and am a rebuilding team. So I feel like nefariously and infamously, as far as dynasty goes, like I am the players over draft picks guy. I tend to play in 1 to 2 year windows. I always try to win now in the majority of my dynasty leagues because ultimately that is the goal of fantasy, right? Pulling down championships. But if I was in the midst of a full rebuild, like a genuine rebuild, that obviously changes things a little bit. As much as I like J.K. Dobbins, fantasy relevance, sure, he might have relevance next year, but he's not going to have as much value as he has right now in this moment. He looks healthy. He looks like he's very involved with this Chargers running attack, which he's very familiar with Greg Roman from his time in Baltimore. So I think it's a good fit. But I would definitely be shopping J.K. Dobbins actively to competing teams. So go look at all the 2-0 teams, see who maybe lost a running back to injury or is just light on running backs in general, and see if you can't flip J.K. Dobbins and a piece for a first. And they might say no, right? Because you have to keep in mind, like, let's say it's a 12-team league, right? If you're offering the first place team who has a chance at winning a championship at first, you have to keep in mind that you're like assuming that's going to be like the 110 to 112. And so I would send like J.K. Dobbins and my 3 for their 1. And if they say no, I might counter either J.K. Dobbins and my 3 or my 4 for their 2. Or vice versa. I might even just go up a little bit. Maybe I just throw in J.K. Dobbins and my 2 for their 1. If I look like a last place team, that 2 is going to be closer to that 1. So I'm only moving up a couple spots ultimately, but getting better draft capital as I go along and not having to hold the injury risk that J.K. Dobbins does present just by being a running back in the NFL. So that's one of those rare times where I would absolutely look to make that move. And I mean, vice versa. If you're a competitive team, you lost Christian McCaffrey, you don't have Jordan Mason, go see who has J.K. Dobbins. Maybe it is one of these bottom feeder teams that has him, and you can trade a second for J.K. Dobbins and get a really solid fill-in and potentially a starting running back for the rest of this year for your team. All right. By the way, I see a couple of people who have joined. Thank you guys so much for jumping in early this morning. If you guys do have any questions, you can drop them in the chat. We will prioritize chat questions above everything else. But until we get some, we've got some questions here. This is a really funny one. So Bear, I'm not even sure who exactly that is. I'm literally going to have to look that up. So that's a rarity because I am in some really deep leagues, including 16 teamers, 32 league team. To have to look, I think it's Eric Sober, if I'm not mistaken. Eric Sober, is that it? Yeah, okay. Very much a journeyman backup. I get that potentially you're looking for a George Kittle replacement. I do not think Eric Sober is the one. Let me just go see here. I know Kittle is out. I'm just looking actually at the team here to see who else they even have. Yeah, Eric Sober, Brain Wells, Jake Tongues. Yeah, no, Gesicki's been cleared. I had him in a couple spots where I was deciding actually between Mike Gesicki and Colby Parkinson, I think is a more valuable streaming option. And in 1 point PPR, like so full point PPR, 100% I'm taking Gesicki. I know Higgins is there, but Chase doesn't seem like he's fully up to speed. And kind of regardless, they're wanting to use the tight ends more in this offense. I think we saw a lot of that. Not just last week, but we saw it kind of last year where they've tried getting these tight ends actively involved in the game plan. So I really like Gesicki today. I think he's solid for 8 points. And so Bear is an absolute dart throw. So I wouldn't do that. Here, this is an interesting one. Derek Carr or Lamar Jackson. That's the point that we're at in this year of 2024. Derek Carr, the number 1 fantasy quarterback right now. Him and Baker Mayfield, I think, are 1 and 2. And we're questioning if we start Derek Carr or over Lamar Jackson. And I will say I'm looking at the votes that are there so far, and it's split 50-50. So nobody's helping right now. My thing is, it depends on the league. And I always say that. I feel like the answer to every fantasy football question is it depends on your league, like roster construction, rules, and scoring. Like, obviously, those are caveats that impact your decision greatly. In a 4-point passing touchdown, I think I'm still going to go with Lamar because of the rushing upside. The fact that I think he had 100 yards in the first game and 50 to 80 in the second game. He's a lock right now on the ground. And I think it's going to be a competitive matchup against the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys coming off a butt whooping against aforementioned Saints will be wanting to compete. I think the Ravens are good enough to get into a little bit of a shootout there. So I like Lamar Jackson a lot today, actually. I think I would take him over Derek Carr in a 4-point passing and 6-point passing. If you wanted to go with Derek Carr, I don't hate it, but I would just say it's more of a consistent, safe floor play right now as opposed to a ceiling play. Like Derek Carr, there is no world in my estimation or viewpoint where he's going to drop 50 fantasy points. Like, even though they've been scoring like crazy, you look at what Derek Carr has been doing. He had 250 yards and 2 touchdowns and a rushing touchdown. And then he had 250 yards and 3 touchdowns. So it's that's fine. That's all well and good. Lamar has the ability to break fantasy. Like he might go get you 15. He might go get you 50. Especially if it actually turns into a shootout. Yeah, I would have Lamar Jackson still over Derek Carr. I think that's a very reactionary take. Again, anybody out there have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. We'll prioritize them, but otherwise we'll look at a couple more of these. Oh God. So responding to the Thursday matchup, last night's game single-handedly torpedoed my matchup this week. What do I do? So this is for the Hunter Henry and Ramondre Stevenson managers out there, and especially if you had the unfortunate luck to start both of them, which I actually did in my Scott Fishbowl league, sadly, because I have Ramondre, and because of the super tight end juice premium, I have Hunter Henry. and I had them both in my lineup, and they gave me a whole whopping 5 points. So I'm feeling that. And what I would say to that is I think it just helps me actually make my decisions for the rest of the week. Obviously, I'm going to be going pure ceiling plays over floor plays now. Guys who I view as being able to get a consistent 10 to 15 points out the window for me. You know, that 8-point floor play for me, not a thing this week in Scott Fishbowl. I'm going to be going with guys that are absolutely boom or bust, like get me 0 or get me 25 plus. That's going to be the play because we're already down bad. The only way to come back would be with like a bunch of those guys popping off in my lineup. Might not be likely, but you're definitely not going to get there with, again, the 8 to 10 consistent floor plays at this point. So you have to just pure ceiling, like Brian Thomas Jr., Xavier Worthy, like those guys are cracking my lineup now over even like a DJ Moore. Like, give me the guy capable of a long bomb right now because Caleb Williams ain't doing it. All right, we got a question in the chat. Jonas, greetings from Germany, mate. Man, yo, worldwide here. What are we doing? That's awesome. Shout out to you, my friend. I am banged up with injuries. Puka, Pacheco. Yeah, I'm feeling it. I have AJ Brown and Isaiah Pacheco and Scott Fishbowl. That's why I'm struggling right now. Who do I start in my flex? Jordan Whittington or Keon Coleman? I'm leaning on Whittington in the cut position. Man, I feel like both of these are flyers. I was not in on the Keon Coleman experience as far as drafting him for redraft. I think for Dynasty, sure. But I definitely didn't project him to take like a massive year one leap. This idea that he was supposed to just come in and replace Stephon Diggs, an all pro caliber wide receiver. It's just, this to me is where real football meets fantasy football. And again, there's a level of wish casting that happens in the fantasy community where, you know, you see a guy like Stephon Diggs leave a team and you see them draft a rookie like Keon Coleman pretty highly. And they're like, oh, well, Keon Coleman's just going to step right into that role. And it's like, that's not how that works. So yeah, what we're seeing, like they're running the ball like crazy. James Cook is the centerpiece of this offense, as I predicted. And they're letting Josh Allen play hero ball behind that when needed. And when it's not needed, they're just going to keep pounding the rock with Ray Davis and Ty Johnson, bleed the clock. And again, let James Cook be electric. And that's the primary, that's like what this offense is built around, is James Cook and the run game. And then Josh Allen hero ball behind that. So that doesn't leave a lot, unfortunately, for Keon Coleman. And I get Jordan Whittington is a total dart throw. The way I'm prioritizing the Rams wide receivers, to me, it's going to be, I'm taking the shots on Tutu Atwell and Demarcus Robinson. I do see them as kind of more big play threats. And capable of getting me the points I need efficiently with less plays. Like, again, those are the kind of guys where I'm like, 5 points or 25 points. There's no in between really. But Whittington is interesting. And I mean, between him and Keon Coleman is as much of a dart throw right now as Whittington. Considering the quarterback, the situation, I think I would take the shot on Whittington here because, and it's not saying like I think Whittington's going to go crazy, but if you're asked, let's put it in this perspective of who do I think gets 3 receptions for 50 yards? Who is more likely to do that? Who's more likely to even just get the 8 points here? It's Whittington, to be honest, just on a pure whim and a prayer because of the way that the Rams run their offense still through Matt Stafford, as opposed to hero ball with Josh Allen, who's going to run the ball 10 to 12 times still. Hey, shout out to my guy Sleaze. I'll be jumping over and watching his stream after this. And anyone else watching, My Mind is a Weapon fantasy football podcast, highly recommend. So I would go over and check out my boy after we're done here. Again, we're not going to be here too much longer. Even I'm actually out of town. I got my weekends fucked up. I thought this was happening next weekend. but yeah, I got myself all in a twist here, but yeah, we'll go for like another 15 minutes and we'll probably just chalk on out of here. But my boy Sleaze, he's going to be going live. I don't remember what time he told me. Hey Sleaze, if you're still listening, drop in the chat like your info and what time you're going live and shit for everybody else. But yeah, let's go jump into some more questions. And again, guys, if you have any questions to drop in the chat, please feel free. We'll prioritize those over anything else I find here. All right, let's see what we can find. Oh God, this is oof. Okay. Brenton Strange or Isaiah Likely. Look, I get that you want a little strange in your life. Everyone wants a little strange now and again. I get it. But that strange can come with some massive consequences. Oh, man. I do think Strange has a great opportunity. I still think that I would take the shot here on Likely. This depends a little bit. So, kind of shout out to Jonas, who had the earlier question of Whittington and Coleman and what we discussed earlier about Ramondre and Hunter Henry. Okay. So in the case of I'm down bad because I played either Hunter Henry or Ramondre Stevenson, or even worse, both of them. Or in the case where I feel like my lineup's really strong, I'm playing against the manager that had them. That kind of tilts my decision a little bit, where I think Strange is definitely going to get you 8 points. I think Isaiah Likely is very much in between. Could be 0, could be 25. So if I'm the one that's down bad, I'm going to play Likely because he has the bigger upside, and I'm just going to do it on a hope and a prayer. Especially if Dallas pass rush can get after Lamar a little bit, the check down is not Mark Andrews, it's Isaiah Likely. A lot of what they were doing against the Chiefs, and the reason he succeeded so much that first week, even though Mark Andrews also didn't look the greatest week one, a lot of what we saw there was because the Chiefs have such a good pass rush. And Isaiah Likely, a lot of the smaller dink and dunk catches that he was getting were on just like little out routes that are kind of little option routes for dump offs for Lamar, as opposed to going to a running back. It goes to the second tight end. That's kind of how this offense is designed. So again, I would take the shot on Likely if I need the extreme upside. If I feel like I am locked to smash the other team by like 50 points and I just want the floor, I could understand going Strange, but I just don't view a world where Strange is the one that gets you 25 points. Maybe I'm wrong about that. That would be like a crazy breakout game for him if he was able to achieve that. I just don't project that with the way I've seen Trevor Lawrence and this Jaguars offense operating. All right, 10-team PPR. I need 3 of these: Amari Cooper, Zay Flowers, George Pickens, Xavier Worthy, and Calvin Ridley. So, okay, this is my last Amari Cooper week, and I'm down bad with the Amari Cooper managers because I don't just have Amari Cooper in Megala Bowl. I traded for him, and it was a bad one too. It was James Conner for Amari Cooper, just straight up. And the reason is because I have like a shit ton. I drafted a lot of running backs on that team. And this was a strategy, like heavy running back early was a strategy I employed in a lot of leagues. And obviously, and the running backs I targeted specifically also, like Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, James Cook, like Alvin Kamara, like those guys have hit. So it isn't just that yes, I went running back heavy, but I also got all the good running backs. So I have teams that are stacked. So like this one, for example, I'll give you the list of, I have Saquon, Derrick Henry, and I have Tony Pollard, and I had James Conner. So I had that 4-pack, and running backs come available. Now I've been able to pick up Braylon Allen, who's looked good. And if anything happens to Brees, obviously, or even if he just continues to emerge and have a role, like that looks good. And my wide receivers, that's where I felt a lot weaker. I only basically had DJ Moore, DK Metcalf, and Brian Thomas Jr., I love him, but he's a rookie. So that's where, when the person sent me the trade for Amari Cooper for James Conner, and this was before week 1 had even played, that's where, for my team and for the construct of my roster, I felt like that was a good move, and I turned out to be incredibly wrong. It would have been much better to just keep James Conner and have him in that second flex spot, because I would just have Saquon, Derrick Henry, James Conner, and Tony Pollard as my 4 running backs, filling 2 running back and 2 flex spots every week. And that's really hard to overcome right now, as long as those guys are healthy and producing. So that was really like where my strategy for the heavy running backs this year was coming from, especially because the value of guys, like when I was looking at Saquon Barkley, like there was no fucking way I was drafting Chris Olave and Drake London and Garrett Wilson, and like even Jalen Waddle is the wide receiver 2 on his own team. Like I'm not drafting those guys above fucking Saquon Barkley. So that's kind of where I was coming from with that. But I made that trade. But Amari Cooper, getting back to that, I mean, all the targets are there. He's had 17 targets in 2 weeks. If I told you just 17 targets, you'd be like, oh shit, 17 targets. But 5 catches for 27 yards. Like, man, there's just no chemistry or connection with Deshaun Watson right now. It's scaring the hell out of me. And this is it. This is the week of, if it can't happen against the Giants, like I think I might just be out. But yeah, so getting back to the question, Amari Cooper, Zay Flowers, George Pickens, Xavier Worthy, and Ridley. For me, I'm going Cooper, Flowers, and Worthy. I might be wrong there. I like Pickens a lot. I just think without Isaiah Pacheco, I really think the Chiefs are going to run a lot more passing plays this week. Also more jet sweeps. And the guys that I see coming off those jet sweeps, Xavier Worthy and possibly Rashee Rice, but I think Worthy especially could pop in a jet sweep run this week. So that's where I'm leaning. All right, we got a couple comments here in the chat. What's up, Albert? Nice to see you. George, this dude looks like Booger from Revenge of the Nerds. Yo, all right. I love the reference. Thank you. And morning, folks. And Stroud or Daniels? Oof. Yeah, I know Minnesota's a really good defense. I'm still going CJ Stroud there. It just feels like he's got the safer floor potential for that Stephon Diggs revenge game. The only thing to check there is I know Nico Collins popped up randomly on injury report. Let's just make sure Nico is also going to be available today. Yeah, he's good to go. All right. Yeah, he was dealing with hip foot issues, held out of practice earlier this week, but he's recovered, off injury report entirely. So, yeah, Nico Collins, very clearly a premier wide receiver right now. You got Diggs. You got Tank Dell. Like, that's a solid offense. Even against a good defense like Minnesota, I think I would – it's actually the other wide receiver you want to make sure you check in that game because you want to make sure that they are able to compete. Yeah, Justin Jefferson also good to go. So not that I think that's going to be like a huge high-scoring matchup, but just the fact that Jefferson's available, gives a little bit of potential for the Vikings offense to at least push the Texans to have to score. So, and Jaden Daniels. I love Jaden Daniels. He runs like a motherfucker, but it's just like there's no synchronicity going on in the passing game right now. Terry McLaurin looks like a complete fucking drop and a bust. Like, oh, see, this is the caveat. This is scoring matters. All right. So if you get 0.2 per rushing yard, That definitely changes things a little bit. Let's go see. Because, yeah, this is the thing. Jaden Daniels through 2 weeks. Also, Joe out here, is it 6 point or 4 point passing? Because that would make a big difference. If it's 6 point, I think I still go Stroud. If it's 4 point with the rushing bonus, I could understand why you want to go Jaden Daniels, because through 2 weeks, he's completed 40 passes for 410 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. But he's run the ball 26 times for 132 yards and 2 touchdowns. So he's basically a running back right now that also throws the ball. Had 16 attempts week 1, 10 attempts week 2. So he's guaranteed to run. Now, it was a little bit down last week, 44 yards, but they just couldn't find the end zone. Cincinnati is kind of an underrated defense. And it's a road game too. I don't super like this matchup. I think, again, most scenarios, I'm still going with CJ Stroud for safety. All right, let's go back to the chat here. We'll answer a couple more questions, and then we can get on out of here. Rest of season, who would you rather have in PPR? Devonta Smith or Travis Etienne? Oh, man. That's so roster dependent. Like, in so many leagues, I would rather have Travis Etienne, especially with like the state of running backs right now. But it depends. Like, I say that, but if I'm in the position of like my Megala Bowl team right now, or I've got a better team that's a better example for this right now. I have a team here. This team is 0-2. Let me read you. Like what the worst part is, I have Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry in this league, but this was a league I went wide receiver heavy. And I have DJ Moore, DK Metcalf, that's fine, Brian Thomas Jr., Calvin Ridley, and then I have Terry McLaurin, who's fucking killing me right now. So between Terry McLaurin and DJ Moore, like, I'm down bad between those two receivers. If I could get someone a little more consistent, like a Devonta Smith, no one's taking McLaurin for that. I might be able to package like DJ Moore, look at my bench, see if there's like a running back handcuff that fits their roster. So like just again, pretending, because I have Ty Chandler on this roster. If they had Aaron Jones, like if I could send DJ Moore and Ty Chandler for Devonta Smith and, whatever functional piece on their bench that makes the trade work, like those are a lot of times the kind of trades that I look for, but very league dependent. All right, well, we got like maybe 5 minutes left. So guys, if you want to drop some questions in the chat, feel free. I'll prioritize those. But again, we're leaving a little bit earlier today. So yeah, drop those questions if you got them. Okay, Jordan Love or Joe Burrow rest of season. That's a tough one, because I understand how Burrow's wrist seems concerning, but he's played through it so far, and the offense is just going to get better when, assuming T. Higgins is back this week, which he is, like, he's back, but I mean if he's back, and then when Jamar Chase finally gets to speed, like, and the Bengals just in general feel like they are generally slow starters and really get cooking in the back part of the season, I feel like they're equal in my mind. Like a healthy Joe Burrow and a healthy Jordan Love, to me, they're almost the same type of quarterback. I think Love a little bit more rushing upside, but I very much view them as like kind of similar fantasy assets. So I think, I would take the guy that's healthy right now and playing right now, obviously, in Joe Burrow. We don't know exactly. Love has already been, this is something I think, general caveat. Let's pause for a second. Next year, guys, and if you are commissioners out there for your fantasy football leagues, we need to amend the IR spots in fantasy football to just be open to everything. Like, I don't give a shit if a player is questionable. Next year, that player is going to be able to be put on IR because I am sick and fucking tired of these NFL coaches dicking around with these goddamn injuries. Bro, I had AJ Brown and Cooper Kupp doubtful for like an entire week. It wasn't until like yesterday that they both got tagged out and I was able to put them both on IR and pick up players. It's like, I'm so sick of this shit. Players that are tagged as questionable when it's like there is obviously no fucking chance that they're going to play. Like, it's horse shit. So this is my plea to you guys out there that next year, if you are in leagues that you commission, or if you're close to the commissioner, you have their ear, let them know, hey, IR spots, we need to amend those to just anyone who is remotely hurt should be allowed to go on IR. I don't give a shit anymore. Questionable, doubtful, out, IR, NA, all of it. All of it. All right. Jake Ferguson or Mike Gesicki. I'm still going with Gesicki this week. I don't even know if Jake Ferguson even plays. Like, I don't think that he is gonna even be like fully healthy or available. So I'm still going with Gesicki there for a 1 week rental. Zach Moss or Jameson Williams. I would stay in the Flames there with Jameson Williams right now instead of Zach Moss. I haven't really seen anything from that Bengals rush attack to make me think that. Joe Ortiz, no way. That's for sissies. Part of the fun working your roster. Yeah, but the point is you can't work the roster. That's my point. So again, we all know Cooper Kupp is out for at least a couple weeks. We all know AJ Brown, who said it him fucking self, is out for a couple weeks. I have both of those players on the roster. They were tagged as doubtful for like an entire week. So I literally could not work the roster because I couldn't put those guys on IR, right? I had to wait until Friday when the waivers have run and everyone's had their chance to pick the fucking waivers clean. I had to wait all the way till like Friday or Saturday or whatever it was for them to get tagged out. And then I was able to put them on IR. And then I was able to get scraps of what was left. And it's like, we all know that those guys aren't playing. That's horseshit. And those are two of my key players on top of it that I need to be able to replace in my lineup. So that's where I'm like, I can't work the roster. It's like you just said, part of the fun is working. No, I have to sit there and watch everybody else work the roster because of the constraints of the fucking IR, because I can't put doubtful guys on IR. And the NFL is fucking around with these injuries, straight up lying to us like we saw with Christian McCaffrey, which that I knew. That's been going on for like 50 years. If you didn't know the NFL coaches were lying about injuries, you're new here. Like, so that's what I'm saying. Like, yeah, I mean, again, going on IR is a different thing. IR is a very specific thing, but I'm talking about the in-between. So what's going to happen now with AJ Brown, who doesn't go on IR? Let me paint this picture for you, okay? He's going to get declared out, and then he's going to go on your IR, and then next week, at the beginning of the week, he's going to be tagged as like questionable or doubtful or something. And what's going to happen is you're going to have to take him off IR, put him back on your bench, meaning you have to drop a player, and then you have to wait until he gets declared out again, put him back on your bench, and then pick up another player. Again, that's a lot of fucking extra steps for just, we all know he's not going to fucking play, dude. So this is what I'm saying. It's like, just make it. If you want to make it so that questionable is too far, okay, fine. But doubtful, bro, doubtful should just be able to go on IR, because doubtful means they're not fucking playing at this point in time in 2024. That's what that means. So we can argue about it till we're blue in the face, but I'm telling you, I'm in all my leagues next year, I'm amending the IR to be much more pliable so that, again, you're able to use it for guys like an AJ Brown or Cooper Kupp, where it's like the NFL and the coaches are fucking around with the injury designations, even though we all know that they're not fucking playing. And especially key guys like that, where it's like, oh, now I can't participate in waivers because the NFL, because fucking Sean McVay decided to put them doubtful for whatever slight coaching advantage he feels that gives him over next week's matchup. In this case, the Niners. So stupid. All right, we got a dynasty trade here. Marvin and a late 2025, it's Olave and a late 2025 first for Marvin Harrison Jr. and a mid 2025 second. Bro, if you told me it was Olave and the 2025 first for just Marvin Harrison Jr., I would still want the Marvin Harrison Jr. side. He's clearly, to me, a tier above Chris Olave, who is an excellent NFL wide receiver, don't get me wrong, but Marvin Harrison Jr., I mean, we saw it. He's clearly like a guy. Baker Mayfield or Kyler Murray this week. Kyler Murray. I love Baker Mayfield. Has been performing great. Denver defense a little bit underrated. I still think that they're going to win that matchup and pretty easily. I think Rashad White also is healthy. That's something to note. So I think we could see actually a little bit of him and Bucky Irving, especially if they get ahead early. But I think Kyler Murray in a potential shootout against Detroit, I like that matchup a whole hell of a lot. I like his weapons a whole hell of a lot. I like his running ability a whole hell of a lot. So I'm still sticking with Kyler Murray there. Anthony Richardson or Baker Mayfield or Derek Carr. That's a funny one. Again, very league specific, or Joe Ortiz kind of mentioned it. He had this too. I'm assuming, if you get points for passing touchdowns like that, I'm definitely still going with Stroud, by the way, going back to your question earlier over Jaden Daniels, who has not even thrown a touchdown yet. I would still go Stroud. But in that same league, I would go with Derek Carr. I think Philadelphia is a good front seven, but their defensive backs leave a lot to be desired. And I think Derek Carr can take advantage and basically have another solid, 253 touchdown type of game. So would you drop Ladd McConkey for Quentin Johnson? No. I think Ladd McConkey is the more talented player. I think that will prove out by the end of the season. Obviously, Quentin Johnson caught those 2 touchdowns, but Quentin Johnson is like a big body outside guy. I think Ladd McConkey is more of the true, profiles as a true number one where he can work in and out of the slot. We just haven't seen much from the passing game, and now Justin Herbert, questionable. He's going to be a true game time decision, apparently. I think he plays because of just the history of Justin Herbert, but again, Derek Carr, Anthony Richardson, question keeps coming up. I think I'm going Derek Carr there. All right. We'll do one more question unless I see any, like I said, come up from the chat. But our last question here is going to be a trade question. Would you trade Nico Collins for Zach Moss and Jalen Waddle? No, the fuck I would not. If I could get Nico Collins for Zach Moss and Jalen Waddle, I'd be dancing in the streets. As much, again, I like Jalen Waddle a lot. He is the second wide receiver on a team that their quarterback is on IR. I would 100 million% trade him and a struggling running back room in, Zach Moss and Chase Brown, either one of them. I would definitely trade those 2 players for Nico Collins, who has clearly established himself as the true alpha wide receiver for this team of the Houston Texans, and for a young ascending quarterback in CJ Stroud, who is already one of the top 5 quarterbacks, arguably, in the NFL. I don't even think it's that arguable. I think he is one of the top 5 in the NFL already. All right. Well, that is it for me. Like I said, we're going to wrap this up a little bit earlier today, but I super appreciate you guys coming in the chat. Joe Ortiz, Albert, my guys Sleaze and Jonas. appreciate everybody out there watching. We will be back tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to be going live, perhaps with a special guest. But yeah, until the next time, guys, I will catch all of you on the flip side.
He's running down the middle by the 50. He's at the 30. He's bare-chested and banging his chest. Now he runs the opposite way. He runs at the 50. He runs at the 40. The guy is drunk, but there he goes. The 20. They're chasing him. They're not going to get him. Waving his arms, bare-chested. Somebody stop that man. Here comes